On behalf of Veterans in Politics International, I would like to thank you both for coming this evening. Just to give you a brief overview of this process, the panel members will be given a 30-second introduction of themselves. Then the candidates will be given 1 minute to introduce themselves and the office they're running for, as well as why they're seeking the endorsement from Veterans in Politics. Please keep in mind that this is not a debate, so all answers and questions will be directed to you and to us. Once a panel member asks you a question, you will be given 1 minute to answer this question. I won't be rude and cut you off, but again, we are on a 30-minute time limit. And at the end of the question and answer portion, each candidate will be given a minute to give their closing statements and their contact information, so on and so forth. So with that being said, my name is Talicia Sandoval. I'm currently a political science major at UNLV and pre-law. I work for Mr. Michael Broadway over here and Cheryl Mendenhall.
Hi, my name is Michael Broadway. I am a real estate broker, and I've been doing this. I've been with Veterans in Politics off and on for about 8 years.
Hello, I'm Karen Sangalaza, resident of Clark County, and I'm a software engineer.
Okay, so starting with Mr. Larow, if you would like to introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Josiah Larow. I have lived in Las Vegas for about 7 years now, since 2015. I've only lived in District 20 since the beginning of the year, but I am running for this seat because I've seen what's been happening over the last 2, 3, 4, 5 years plus over the last several decades. And I don't like the direction that a country is going, that our state is going. We're seeing restrictions on individual liberty, and we're seeing our country just continue to go down the wrong path. So I'm running because I feel like I'm a different voice, contrary to many of the other voices that have been speaking for the people. And it's about time for a change.
Thank you, Ms. Marsh.
Thank you for the invitation to talk with you today. I am Trish Marsh, and I am the candidate for Assembly District 20. And I've been a lifelong resident right at 60 years of Las Vegas, Nevada. I am dedicated to our community, to everything, our children, our families. And this is the reason why I've come back out and I'm running for the Assembly. Now, I was a previous candidate for the Commission E, and now that the districts have been gerrymandered again, I've got thrown out of E and into an entirely different district and didn't choose to run for that particular district and decided that Assembly is where I was going to head and start putting some craftable, workable legislation together for our residents that's going to make sense. I mean, common sense. So I'm Patricia Marsh, Trish Marsh on the ballot, and Assembly 20.
Thank you very much. So first and foremost, I would like to start because a lot of people have a misconception of what an assembling person is and what they do. So if you could give a brief overview of what office you would be running for, go ahead.
So I'm running for the Assembly District 20. And in my view, an assemblyman or assemblywoman is somebody who just speaks for the voice of the people of their district in Carson City and allows them to live the life that they want to live and keep their lives free and open and work those legislative tasks to do that. And I believe that that's the general role of government, is to protect the rights of the individual. And as an assembly person, your job is to obviously work that legislative aspect of it, restrain the power where it's necessary, and use that power to protect the rights of the individual at all costs.
Thank you, Ms. Marsh.
Well, as a legislature, you spend a lot of time crafting legislation. For instance, there's several things out there that have been put into law, in effect, that really need to be brought back to the table and looked at again because it doesn't meet today's standards. It needs to be recrafted so that it's worded for today's events. We have so many things that are happening today that are so different that happened 20 years ago. So today's events need to be recrafted so that it works and it's workable for everyone, not just one.
Thank you.
Mrs. Marsh, you just talked about recrafting. Could you possibly give 2 examples for the panel?
Yeah, okay. The first one that comes to mind, Planned Parenthood. I'm not a strong supporter of Planned Parenthood for the simple fact that truly they are not helping our children of today. The ladies that go to their program, they charge our girls to get a birth control shot. You know, they're doing the right things and in practicing all of the necessary steps in order to prevent themselves from getting pregnant, but yet they're charging $100 a shot. Now, there are a program and money that's already dedicated for the Planned Parenthood, but that's not helping that child, that young adult doing the responsible thing, saying, hey, I just don't want children right now, but now you're charging them $100 when it should have been a lot reduced. So that's one that I can think of right off the top of my head. And so
Thank you. If you would like to add to that, Mr. Larow, what's something that you would add or change?
The list is far too long. But I would say, just off the top of my head, certain restrictions and things within the Nevada Gaming Association or whatever they call it, they just have too much power within our state government. And I think that reducing that role that they have is very important because we have a lot of businesses and individuals here in Nevada that could thrive if they were given the opportunity. And unfortunately, we have big business working alongside many legislators to stifle that entrepreneurship that is alive and well in our state.
Thank you. My next question would be bill draft requests, also known as BDRs. You are proposed 5. So what are your top 5 as soon as you get into office, provided that that's the position that you're elected to? Ms. Marsh?
Okay. I would be a strong supporter of some legislation that's going to strengthen our elder laws. We really have some issues when it comes down to that. We've got too many people that are messing up the system with the guardianship issues, and those guardianships are not taking care of the elders properly, or the money is being diverted in different directions. So that's one. Of course, I'd like to see some diversification. I would also like, healthcare, and then put some caps on prescriptions and things like that, because we do have a senior group and we have veterans that are PTSD, they have mental health issues. We have them huge suicide rates at the present time. We need to do these things and put it together for them. So,
thank you, Mr. Larow.
It's hard to say, just narrow down to just 5. And I don't necessarily have anything specific, but I would say somewhere around education, such as if Clark County School District is going to be receiving education funds from the state, there needs to be some changes in how they manage their student population, potentially breaking up the district, things like that. Also, I would like to see something in regard to constitutional carry for firearms. There was a Missouri legislation that just recently passed that protected and separated out the federal government's interference with how the state runs certain investigations and enforces federal law on constitutionally protected rights. And I would like to see something similar to that here to protect everyone's right to defend themselves. Potentially revamping and looking at the marijuana legislation and how much of those funds are currently being mismanaged and misappropriated. There are a number of different issues.
Thank you.
So you've both briefly touched on a need for a change in the education system in one way or another. What's the main improvement that has to be made in the education system?
Well, I don't believe splitting up the district would be the idea. I mean, I was one years ago that thought that would be the solution. It isn't. It would just create too many levels and layers, and there'd be more than Clark and the Washoe and the Pahrump and it would just add up, creating a lot more layers. And I think that it would ultimately cost much more. So I'd like to see, and this is a whole nother issue. Years ago, I'm sure many of you here, we didn't have school police within our schools when we went to school. We didn't have that. Today we do. It's a very scary situation. And we have teachers that really, truly don't want to be handling weapons in order to protect their students. So we've got a lot of things that we need to accomplish. And I think schools would be a big one.
I want to get back to that. You're saying that teachers shouldn't carry guns. What if a teacher's had training and has a CCW and can carry a gun? I mean, I think it should be optional.
Absolutely. Okay. I was within the armored car industry, a leading armored car industry. I am very, very familiar with how weapons are to be handled and the teaching of such. And if they are trained properly, but you know as well as I do, just like the officers out there, they have their weapons on the side, and then you have that perpetrator that takes the weapon out from under them and then, of course, uses it against them. Same thing can happen with the teacher. So there's a lot of liability issues that would fall in with that. But it would be the teacher's choice to do so if the teacher wants to.
Well, I would counteract that with if teachers are going to carry it, should be concealed. Obviously, they don't need the classroom knowing that they have a firearm.
I would agree with that.
Okay. Mr. Larow, go ahead.
I just want to touch back on the question from Karen. And I think one of the key ways that we can adjust our educational system is having the funding following the children and allow them the option out of a public school system that is failing them. I think that is a great way that we can really incentivize proper education. If we take that power away from teachers' unions and administrators, then they will have an incentive to do better. Right now, they don't. So I think that is one way, in addition to potentially breaking up the district. Obviously, a lot of things to consider there. And I apologize, I forgot what part of your question was.
You seem to have a very physical reaction to some of the things that are being said. Is there anything that you inherently disagree with, Ms. Marsh? No. Okay. If you wanted to comment on it, I was going to give you an opportunity. No worries. Go for it.
So how do you plan to involve residents in the decision-making process?
Well, I'm out there and I'm talking to all the residents and door to door, and that's the way to get the word out. And I'd like to hear from them. When you're putting together legislation, you want to hear what is important to them, what they want, and that's what I want to bring them is what they want, what they need.
Okay, so I think that this will be our last question. NRS statutes are being rushed. So basically what happens is, and I don't remember the exact numbers, and people at home have heard us ask multiple assembly people the same question. But basically what happened is that it took a great chunk amount of time to pass 3 NRS statutes, and then they rushed the rest of them. What do you think was the issue there? And also, how do you think that we could fix it from here on out, electing you as an appointed official?
It's unacceptable for 3 to make it through, and then the rest wait until the very, very last, 50th something day. To me, that's very sickening. I think that it probably, as legislation gets brought in, it needs to go and get tweaked, and then tweaked again, for lack of better words, and then tweaked again. So it's constantly being recrafted in order to fit certain circumstances or make sure that it isn't unconstitutional. So there's a lot of legalities involved with it. they need to speed up this process, maybe more people together, and of course that's more money, more people looking at this potential piece of legislation. There's a lot of different things, but it's unacceptable for just 3 to pass.
I agree. Mr. Larow?
I think that there's potentially a more nefarious reason, and I think that it's potentially on purpose, is to have extended debates on certain issues and then rush things through so people don't have the time to give a proper, what's the word? Advocate for the opposite, right? So, and I think that that's potentially a reason why. And I also think that we are probably just passing and trying to do too much. I think we have to have our government step back and look at what is actually necessary and what is actually required to have a successful running state with freedom. And I think that my basic platform is that the government is just way too big and they're trying to do way too much.
Okay, so how would you feel about not necessarily proposing more NRS statutes and trying to, again, filter through them, but potentially taking some away, right? Because at this point, we're pushing things through where there's pages and pages and pages of legislation, and they're clearly not reading them if they're being rushed through so quickly. So what is it that they're slipping in between, and what is it that we need to change in the event that maybe we start taking some of these away? Would you like to comment, Ms. Marsh?
Well, there's a lot of pieces of legislation that maybe they're just not being read correctly. And right off the bat, you can start eliminating them because, one, they're constitutionally incorrect. And take those out. Get rid of them. Don't even work on those. And, just bring it back to me when there's something that we can work with. Otherwise, let's move to the next one. So we just got to keep moving forward and trash the ones that are no good and bring the ones forth that work.
Thank you. If you would like to answer that and then go right into your conclusion with your campaign information and how people can contact you in your closing statement. Thank you.
Sure. So I think a great way to do that is to require either certain language to be limited, a certain length for these statutes, and or having them required to be read aloud, as can be required at this federal level. Is you can require them to be read aloud, and if a 2,000 page or whatever legislation or statute is required to be read aloud, it's unlikely to happen. So it would force it into being reevaluated. And just closing statements again, my name is Josiah Larow. I am the Libertarian running for Nevada Assembly District 20. You can reach me at Josiah Larow at protonmail.com. You can go to my website at electjosiahlarow.com, and you can find me on all the socials at Elect Josiah Larow as well.
I want to thank you for inviting me again and for your time. My name is Trish Marsh, and I am the Assembly 20 candidate, and I am your moderate Democrat. I do have an opponent, and I do have a primary opponent. My primary opponent, his family lives in Indianapolis. His children live in Indianapolis. So I'm curious as to how he actually is representing Nevada when he has a family in Indianapolis. And I, like I said, been here 60 years. I want to represent you. So please give me a call. Check out my website. It's Trish Marsh for assembly20.com. And I'm available at 702-329-5600 if you'd like to talk in person. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That concludes our endorsement interview.